Fitting that Lamborghini Super Trofeo on their 10-year anniversary, one of the most exciting single-make series in the world, makes its second appearance of the season at one of the most challenging racetracks of the world, WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. 31 cars, a record field, entered this weekend. WeatherTech Raceway, Salinas, California, just south of San Francisco, about an hour and a half. And it is a spectacular venue. So much history here at this racetrack. So look at the names: Andretti Hairpin, Rahal Straight, the Corkscrew. Those are names known throughout the world. Great racing here, and one of the most challenging racetracks you'll ever face as a driver. Turn 2, some good passing. Turn 6, you've got to get a good run up the hill to the Corkscrew, as turn 8 and 8A, then rushing down the hill 5, 6 stories down to turn 11, a last place to make an outside pass or an inside pass any way you can onto the front straightaway and to the checkered flag. That's a lap here at WeatherTech Raceway. Round 2 today. Let's take you to round 1 of the 2022 season. Yesterday, it was Patrick Kajala on the pole. He led from the start in his Lamborghini Beverly Hills entry, but this may be the pass of the year right here. First lap, climbing up the hill to the Corkscrew. Jenny Vermael in the number 1. Passes Kajala for the P1 into the Corkscrew. Never headed since then. Then a problem for the 8. Damon Oki spins off in front of 7. And a little argy-bargy here. That's the green and white. Has taken some pounding there. And then look at this. Ashton Harrison fighting with Luke Berkeley. Still get a warning for that. And then a problem for the number 3, Randy Solari. He would get a penalty for that contact. It brought out the final yellow of the day. In the end, Sally, Jenny Vermael, they win in the pro category. Ashton Harrison in Pro-Am. Nico Rieger, David Staub, they win Am category. And in LB Cup, Wesley Slim, Tyler Hoffman, they take an inaugural victory for not only that driver duo, but for TPC Racing as well. Cars lined up in the pit lane. Welcome, everyone. I'm Brian Till, along with Jeremy Shaw. We'll call the action for you today. And Jeremy, we saw a lot of action yesterday, and I think a lot of these drivers were caught out on the second stint by rising temperatures in those Pirelli tires and rising air pressures as well.
Yeah, Brian, it's a workout for the cars and drivers, and particularly the tires here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. An old weathered surface here, and it doesn't have much grip, and that means the cars slide quite a bit more than normal. And because of that, they tend to chew up their tires. So tire management, very definitely a factor in today's race. And we've got most of the cars in this race have, well, about an equal number of 2 drivers in a car, or drivers doing this race solo. And because of that, the 2 driver teams, the other driver that did not start yesterday's race will be starting today's race. And that's particularly good news for the number 8 car. We saw it having a spin in race 1 yesterday, but today Damon Oki will not be taking the starting duties. It will be Patrick Liddy. And how things change? Well, he'll be starting on the pole position, a brilliant lap in the qualifying session yesterday. Patrick Liddy from California will start the number 8 car for O'Gara Motorsport with Change Racing and US Racetronics on the pole position.
Well, think about that, Jeremy. I think it's one of the interesting things about Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and that is you can have 1 or 2 drivers. Mandatory pit stop in this race. The 1 driver format, you'll have to sit in pit lane for an additional 3 seconds. But if you're a 1 driver format, would you think that that gives you a little bit of an advantage here in race number 2? You've already raced once here this weekend. You know what to expect at the green because you did it yesterday. You're going to do it again today. For those 2 driver formats, as you pointed out, it's a driver switch between the starting driver and finishing driver from race 1 to race 2.
And it's still pretty cool this morning as well, so track conditions are varying quite a lot during this weekend, and they're notorious for changing here at this racetrack. Nico Rieger there with David Staub, that number 48 car, they won the AM class yesterday and looking good for another result again this morning. But yes, it's certainly easier for a solo driver entry because they know they can track conditions. They come in and made their pit stop halfway through this race. They can make it anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes into the 50-minute race. And when they leave the pits, having made their mandatory pit stop, then they know what the track conditions are like. They know how their car is handling. They know how much grip the track has, or in this case hasn't. So it's much easier for them. And because of that, that is why the drivers who are making who are making that driver swap, their pit stop can be 3 seconds faster, because then it'll give them that 3-second margin to kind of make it up on the racetrack. So a minimum pit stop time of 87 seconds for the solo teams and 84 seconds for the dual driver lineups in this race, and that is the time from when they enter the pit lane to when they leave the pit lane, not the time they're stationary on the pit lane.
Last bit of messaging between crew and drivers. They have done their reconnaissance lap. Now they'll leave pit lane and do one pace lap, and then we'll start. Everyone's come out to watch Lamborghini Super Trofeo, even our fuzzy friends here on the hill at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Now that one lap behind the Huracan safety car, and we talked about this in race 1, Jeremy. It's a brand new, I don't want to call it a brand new car, because the platform underneath the bodywork is the same chassis, same drivetrain, same engine, same transmission, but much improvements on this Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2, a different braking system, and we've got a problem for one of the cars on pit lane. I believe it's the 71, a different braking system and also different bodywork. Only the doors are the same. So the platform better aerodynamically and better braking wise, which should help those Pirelli tires. But a problem for the 71, and if he is the last car to leave pit lane, they will not be able to retake their starting position. So that hole will remain open, and it appears that right now the 71 is not going to get out for this reconnaissance lap. That's Billy Johnson, TPC Racing. It's been kind of an up and down weekend for him. He wasn't as quick as he wanted to be in the practice sessions. And then for qualifying for race 1, qualified 4th, had a good time there, but they seem to be struggling a little bit to find the balance on this TPC Racing Lamborghini.
Yeah, he raced a lot better, I think, than he qualified yesterday. He finished in the 7th position overall. He was 5th in the pro category, and so yeah, it was a pretty good run for Billy after the disappointment in qualifying. And now he's going to have to work his way from the back of the pack to get up to where he thinks he should be, and he will be one of the drivers who is going solo in the race in that number 71 car.
Well, and unlike other one-make series that you'll follow in Lamborghini Super Trofeo throughout the world, 4 different categories of drivers, all driving the exact same Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2 chassis. You've got your pro category where all the drivers, both drivers or singular driver, are pros. The Pro-Am category where you have a pro and then a bronze-rated driver. The Am category where all of the drivers are bronze rated, and then the LB Cup category, which is really for unrated drivers, so newcomers to the sport, but all driving the same car as the lights out on the Huracan pace car, and they will come down. That 4-class combination, Jeremy, leads to some pretty exciting action, especially in the latter stages of the race.
It does. We've got 7 pro cars, 6 pro-ams, 13 ams, and 5 LB Cups, and a couple of teams are actually reclassified after yesterday. The number 9 car of Wesley Slimp and Taylor Hoffman, and also number 4 car of Michael Manella and Bart Collins. They've been reclassified from LB Cup to AM. Here we are. Green flag is in the air.
Patrick Liddy leads the field in the number 8 down to turn 2, the Andretti hairpin. You don't really think about turn 1, that left-hand bend, but it is definitely a corner. And already Spinelli in the 88, the white, green, and red Lamborghini trying to push forward, and a problem for your race winner from yesterday. The one is around. That's Kyle Marcelli behind the wheel. Did he have help?
He's had no luck this week. Yeah, he did have help, I think, there at the Mario Andretti hairpin, just coming out of the corner. Just got a little tip from the rear. And it was from the, I think that was from the pole-sitting car from yesterday, I think. Patrick Cujalo, I'm not quite sure, but whatever it was, it's sent yesterday's race winner for a spin. And Paul Marseille, there's no luck at all. He got punted yesterday into a huge spin in the Michelin Pilot Challenge race as well. Had a big impact with the wall. Lucky to escape injury from that one.
Well, if you're going to have a problem, you want it early, because I've got to feel like the aggressor may end up coming to pit road. This is going to give you an opportunity, especially if there's a full course caution, to close back up. But right now, the leader's skirting away, the number 8 of Patrick Liddy in the 8. Out in front right now, really putting the hammer down. But we talked about this yesterday. Laura Spinelli in the 88, really expect to see that car flying here. It always is. The fastest driver on the racetrack last year in that Lamborghini from Palm Beach entry from Torino Racing with D Motorsports. Always very quick, but you've got to be impressed with Patrick Liddy right now. Lamborghini Westlake, O'Gara, Change Racing, and US Racetronics combining to field that car. Liddy really showing what talent he has to stay out in front of Spinelli, because Spinelli, one of the fastest drivers in this series, really one of the fastest drivers in a Lamborghini Huracan anywhere in the world.
Yeah, well, he is, and set remarkable record last year. He was running in the Pro-Am category in 2021, and he set fastest overall race lap in every single race of the season, which is pretty impressive. But he didn't do so yesterday, so that string has now been broken. But he is running in second place. He's now running in the Pro category. He'll be sharing that car with the 18-year-old South African Gianni Torino, South African born, but based now in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. And Gianni had some good races last season, didn't complete the whole season, but certainly was fast on occasion. And this year, driving with Laura Spinelli, that's a great opportunity for both of those two to have a good result. And right now, Spinelli running in second position, but best placed of the Pro cars.
Purple number 27 racing down the hill towards turn 11. That's third place, Eduardo Liberati. Good run yesterday from Lamborghini Las Vegas and Dream Racing. That's the car that won the championship last year. And I think things just really kind of settling down in the top 5. Luke Berkeley right there in 4th in the number 23. He really struggled yesterday with the handle on that car, I think. And then looking back a little bit further in the field, the 51, that's the leader, Signoretti, in the LB Cup category, or I should say in the AM category.
Yeah, indeed. And Claude Signoretti, who drove last season, he shared the car with Loris Spinelli, currently running in second position. And Claude has really improved his pace over the winter. He's from Brazil. He's a good pass a little bit further back down the field.
It's Nico Rieger in the 48.
Yeah. That is
and
the
really
AM contender, running in third position at the moment. He's just taken second position from Cam Aliabadi in car number 17. So it's a battle for second and third, right behind Claude Signoretti.
And they had a great run yesterday in the 48. So it's one of those pairings. They won the race yesterday, he and Staub. So it's one of those pairings that is new, but they've really come together. And you think about Nico Rieger driving F4 cars out of spec Miata and then stepping into a 600 plus horsepower Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2. I was really, really impressed with those two young men yesterday, the job they did, and Rieger really putting on a show here in the early stages.
Well, yes, he did, didn't he? And he's a feisty young man, is Nico, a very talented youngster as well. But Loris Spinelli's really putting the pressure on Patrick Liddy. Patrick Liddy he's not exactly a household name, is he? But he's been fast in these cars whenever he drives them. He'll be sharing this number 8 car with Damon Oki, who's a 2-time AM champion in Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America. And Patrick Liddy's from Pasadena, California, 25 years of age, and he's a very talented young man. He's one of those underrated drivers who's got an opportunity this year to run up at the front with Damon Oki for the entire season, and taking full advantage of that. And even as a Pro-Am driver, here he is leading the race from the pole position for that O'Gara Motorsport Change Racing US Racetronics Triumvirate.
And there's no one that will put more pressure on Patrick Liddy than Loris Spinelli behind. The two of them need to understand that they're running in different classes, though. Patrick Liddy doesn't want to throw away a potential race win in the Pro-Am category because he's fighting with Loris Spinelli too much in the Pro category. So it's something that you have to be aware of. But for Patrick Liddy right now, think the lights are really shining bright on Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America over the last several years. You think about the 10 years that this series has run here. In the beginning, minimal cars, but over the last 3 or 4 years especially, the talent that has arrived here in Lamborghini Super Trofeo has been spectacular, and it really has propelled a lot of these drivers who elect to come run here into bigger and, I won't say better, but more well-known series beyond it. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about this series and the stability of it, the stability of the rules package. We talk about this new car, Jeremy. It's the Evo 2, but underneath it, some of these cars, about 25 of them today, are brand new. The other 25, or the other 20 or so, are cars from last year that just have the Evo kit bolted on. It takes about a day and a half to make those changes, and that as far as the chassis go and the rule stability, give you a platform from which to work for. It's not increasing the budget every year because everything's brand new. And it really, I think, shows the reason for the growth in this series. A record field today, and we expect, in addition to these 31 cars, which are all full-time entrants, we expect another 5 or 6 entrants throughout the season.
Yeah, we do indeed, and it's just remarkable, the growth. And I think you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head there. Plus, it's just really well managed series. Christopher Ward looks after this program. As we see now, Loris Spinelli gets a great run off the final corner, and he's going to nose ahead of Patrick Liddy as they head across the start-finish line to complete lap 5 and begin lap 6. A new race leader there is car number 8. Meanwhile, a quick note here from race control: drive-through penalties for 2 cars for improper starts. You're not allowed to move out of your line at the start of the race. So 2 significant penalties here for car number 51. That's Claude Signoretti, who was leading in the AM class in car number 51. Also a drive-through penalty will be served by car number 27. And that is Eduardo Liberati, who was running in the 3rd position overall and 2nd in the pro class.
Well, that rule is somewhat, I don't know, particular to IMSA, let's say, but they are very strict about it, and the drivers are tasked with knowing the rules. I think a lot of times your emotions get the best of you, and what you know kind of goes out the window. Take a look at the start. The columns should be lined up when the green flag comes out. No one should be pulling out and passing, and you can see vividly cars jumping out of line and then even crossing over into the other column underneath the bridge before the start-finish line. You cannot do it. You need to stay in your column. And we saw several infractions right there, and they're paying the price.
Yeah, I mean, I get it that you want to get going. You really want to get this race underway. You're antsy at the start, but you've got to follow the race procedures. And it's the first weekend of the season, certainly for this Lamborghini Super Trofeo in North America. But both of those drivers that were pinged there have had experience here in this series in the past, so they really should know the rules.
Good battles around the racetrack, and I think Patrick Liddy really did the smart thing of once Spinelli was there, as they headed down to turn 2, Patrick Liddy said, you know what, I've shown what I can do. I've put in a good performance today. I'm leading my class. I don't need to get tangled up with Spinelli, who is definitely a hard charger. Let's just hold on to what we've got. He lost the position, but he maintains the lead in class, and that's what's important.
Yeah, well, absolutely right. There it is indeed, Brian. And Patrick Liddy, he's running there in that 2nd position. In 3rd position is Luke Berkeley, the 2nd of the pro cars. Then behind him, by not very much, is Brian Ortiz in car 47 for Precision Performance Motorsports. He is running 2nd in Pro-Am, 4th overall, ahead of another pro car, former series champion Eduardo Piscopo in car number 50. And I think it was actually Piscopo that made that contact with the number 1 car at the very start. Meanwhile, Carl Marcelli, having had that spin on the first corner, he's already back up into 13th position. And all right behind, right ahead of him, I should say, is Billy Johnson, who had that problem at the start and had to take the start from the back of the field. So those 2 cars both working their way back up the order.
Great racing throughout the field, throughout the 4 different classes. We just saw Baccarella and Tate up the hill in towards turn 6, side by side. And we'll see these battles throughout, and I think that's how the classes mix together, Jeremy, and especially with some of these cars, those 2 cars that got penalties, faster classes, or should I say more experienced, quicker drivers, they're going to be working their way through. And for the less experienced drivers, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, they have the challenge of focusing forward on the racetrack because they're relatively new at this and they need to really focus on the job at hand, but they've got to be aware of who's coming up behind. And really what that experienced driver wants to see is he comes up on one of these more inexperienced drivers. He just wants to see consistency with the line, and a problem for the number 4, a big problem. I think there was contact, that left rear definitely down, Jeremy.
Yeah, big spin there for Bart Collins in column 4. That's one of the cars that's been reclassified from LB Cup to AM for today. He was running 4th in the AM class, was Bart, in an MCR race in column 4. And then he's going to bring out the full course caution. Yeah, just go on the dirt there. Ouch.
We saw that a lot
wheel on dirt.
Saw that a lot there yesterday, Jeremy. Cars dropping that wheel off the left side and struggling. We saw several spins. No one made it back across and made contact with the wall like Bart Collins did. But you drop that left rear and the car starts to come around, and boom, that is a big hit on that inside wall. You talked about it. Bart Collins and Manella, they finished second in LB Cup yesterday, and then with their performance and the lap times that they were turning in, Chris Ward just said, no, we can't have that. You know, everybody needs to fit in to the class where they run, and if you have some of these breakout lap times and your performance is above where it should be for the standard of that class, Chris Ward, who's the senior manager of motorsports for Lamborghini America, is going to look at that and say, you know, it's just not fair to the other competitors. We need to put you with like competition, and that's why you get moved. You really want to get moved there before the season ever starts, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right, and I think somebody else might be falling foul of this fairly soon. Be car number 14, which is Slade Stewart. He's currently running in the 14th position, made a great start. He lined up on the grid in 19th, made up 4 positions on the first lap. Okay, one of those was a spin for Carl Marcelli. Another one was the fact that Billy Johnson had to go to the back, but still he passed a lot of cars, or passed several cars on that first lap, did Slade Stewart, and running now in the 15th position. That's one of the Flying Lizard Motorsports entries, and he is far ahead of the second place car in LB Cup, which is Ophir Levy in car number 13, who's already back in 24th place. And just looking at their lap times in the early stages of this race, the best lap so far for the number 14 car is a 1 minute 29.3, which is significantly faster than everybody else in that class. And Ophir Levy's best time was 29.5, so actually only 0.2 of a second. I'm surprised. I thought it might have been more than that. But he certainly made a great start, Slade Stewart, and he leads in LB Cup as the full course caution flies.
And Stewart with a lot of time in motorcycles, some off-road stuff, but not any road racing really to speak of. So that's why he was put into the LB Cup category. But I do want to say something about that incident that we just saw. I think one of the most important things that you'll see at any IMSA event when there is a problem, when there is contact, is that AMR, rapid response vehicle, there on site. It's great to see that 4-door Porsche SUV pull up and know that some of the people in that car are some of the best in the business at what they do, and that is emergency medicine and understanding the physical effects of racing incidents. And so they know what to look for. You're in great hands when they show up, and if you do have some type of a problem, you know you're going to be well taken care of and that you're in good hands. And I can tell you, as a former driver myself, when you know that the safety teams that are there are the best in the business, it doesn't make you go faster, it doesn't make you push harder, it just gives you a sense of calm on the race weekend.
It does, doesn't it? And yeah, they just do a fantastic job, the AMR safety team, and you know they look after not just the IMSA WeatherTech or the IMSA series, but also you know, Indy cars and Road to Indy as well. I mean, you know, they are ubiquitous in North American motorsport and unsung heroes of the sport, but very, very well, not only highly regarded, but greatly appreciated as well.
Great hospitality here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and we talk about, enjoying the races and enjoying the racetrack. Well, there are all kinds of ways to do it. The WeatherTech Paddock Club is one of them, but that's the other thing that Lamborghini is known for, and the Lamborghini Super Trofeo series is known for, and that is some of their world-class hospitality. I don't get to go in it very much, Jeremy. They check IDs at the door, and I don't. Chris Ward doesn't give me a pass very often to get in, but it is 5-star food and hospitality inside that Lamborghini hospitality that is at every event that the Lamborghini Super Trofeo series races at. And I think these people are probably lined up outside saying, can I get in, please? It's kind of like being behind the rope at trying to get into those clubs into out in LA that I know that you go to all the time.
And it's great for all the families that are involved in this series as well, because all the families can go along there as well. And it's a great place to watch the hospitality area. Is on the inside of turn 3. There's a quick look at it by the just kind of over the bridge from the paddock, and there's a nice little viewing area there as well. You can see from the hospitality area the kind of braking area for turn 3, and it's a fun place to watch. And as you say, great times down there, and all of the teams take full advantage of what Lamborghini has to offer here. It's a full service series in every aspect of the phrase.
I've told Chris Ward before that I would trade him a hospitality pass for the use of a Lamborghini Huracan on the street, and I haven't gotten the pass or the car, Jeremy.
Nice try.
You don't ask, you don't get, right? So as the crew still working here with the number 4, trying to get that car picked back up and out of the way, we're closing down on the pit window. The pit window in this 50-minute race opens at 30 minutes and then closes with 20 minutes to go. So you've got 10 minutes to get it done, but this is going to take a rollback to get that number 4 from MCR Racing up on to some type of a tow vehicle to get it out of the way so that we can get back to racing. That Lamborghini in Miami, some significant damage to the left rear after that contact with the wall. So right now behind the safety car, Brian Till, Jeremy Shaw with you. It's round 2 of Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Fans on the hill, this is how you start them out, right, Jeremy? You bring them to the racetrack, they stand there and they watch the cars, and then it's those sports cars, those iconic sports car posters that go on their wall, and maybe they don't put them on the wall anymore. Maybe it's on the screen, the screensaver of your laptop or your phone. But man,
I love the headsets as well. The ear defenders there. I mean, these cars they sound glorious, don't they? These V10 engines pumping out well over 600 horsepower. These are serious racing cars, and they really are spellbinding, whatever age you are as a fan.
Well, think about that. We talk about the different classes and the experience of the drivers here, and when it's one of those things where you don't have a lot of experience. We were talking about the impressive job that Nico Rieger was doing earlier. F4 experience, Miata experience, but then climbing into one of the most powerful sports cars that you will find, and performing the way that he is, and many of the other drivers that lack that experience. I think it's a testament to not only the training that some of these drivers have had, but a testament to the car. And not that it's easy to drive by any stretch of the imagination, but it doesn't do anything untoward. It doesn't do anything surprising. It's very straightforward. Anyone I've talked to about these cars says they're very straightforward. Yes, they're very fast, but there's not a personality quirk that will bite you. It's something that you can address, very straightforward, and especially for some of these drivers, if you think about where their experience comes from. I mean, some of these drivers have been through the Lamborghini Pilota course, and that's where they've gained their experience. Sorry, I had a sneeze.
Yeah, a lot of drivers in this field haven't done any racing at all. The guy who's running second in the AM category, Cam Aliabadi, in kind of a 17 for Dream Racing Motorsports. This is his first ever race weekend. He attended that Pilota course on Lamborghini at Las Vegas with Dream Racing Motorsport, and many of the drivers in this field have come through that program, fallen in love with driving this sort of a car, and kind of, been enticed by the racing bug. And once you get bitten by that, there's no hope. But most of the drivers that come through here, many of the drivers have come through here, but Cam Alibardi there running in that 13th position overall, second in AM. First ever race was yesterday. He was running in second place for a while, had a quick spin, but he's been mightily impressive this weekend, and he is one of those drivers certainly that would be eligible to be running in LB Cup for newcomers to the sport. But Enrico Battaglia, who's a very accomplished former racing driver himself and team principal, one of the principals at Dream Racing Motorsport, he said, look, Cam, you're good enough just from the pace you've shown us through the testing and all the laps you've done around Las Vegas and other testing tracks as well they've been to. You're good enough to be better than those LB Cup guys. Why not challenge yourself? Let's go straight into AM rather than, as you said, being moved up a category of racing experience during the season. Much better to start off in AM and keep your points there rather than shine in LB Cup early on and then get bumped up to AM later on in the season. But Cam Alibardi is a really good example of that, and he is doing a fine job there in that second position in that class. I think now we're inside the window for the pit stops to happen, but the pit stops cannot take place under caution. They have to wait until we go back to green before these cars can make their mandatory one pit stop.
Well, it's interesting, I think, for Enrico Battaglia at Dream Racing, what he sees is that the driver is doing the job the driver needs to do as far as finding the speed in the car. What he needs to do is learn to race. For several other drivers in the field, they need to find the speed as well as the racecraft. So that's where having a team owner like Enrico is so valuable with his racing experience that he had about the same time that I had mine. He brings that experience, and he really analyzes these drivers and places them in a position not only to shine, but to challenge themselves. And that's exactly what you're talking about there. I'm going to place you in this higher class because I'm going to challenge you. You have the speed. Now learn the racecraft.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what this series does. It is, as we were saying, for many drivers, it is an entry point to the sport. I mean, to me, it seems extraordinary and somewhat bizarre, quite frankly, as somebody who's been involved in sport for 50 years, to be starting out your first racing in a 600 horsepower V10 Lamborghini seems somewhat stretching the limits a bit, but that's what it's all about. I mean, racing is about stretching the limits, and certainly for someone like Enrico Battaglia, who's got a huge amount of racing experience under his belt. He's a former winner of the Monaco Grand Prix Formula 3 support race, won the Italian Championship way back in the 80s as well. He knows what he's talking about, so he's a really good guide for these drivers looking to make their way into the sport.
Well, he's someone who's been there, done that. As you said, you look at his success in F3. He also won Macau, which I mean, if you know anything about the F3 series back in the day, that was the race. That was the race to win. So
well, Monaco, those two, Monaco and Macau in successive years, you're pretty darn good.
Yeah, and if you want to go visit with Enrico, if you're ever in Vegas, you can stop out and see him and take a ride in some of his cars. I mean, he's responsible for some of the education of some of these drivers, and certainly from an entertainment standpoint, he's got a pretty cool thing going there in Vegas to go tool around the racetrack and some pretty special equipment. The pit window is technically open on the clock, but as you pointed out, after the caution, the cars will be allowed to head to pit road. So while the clock is running, as it would normally, this is when you would see the cars on pit lane. But we're going to have to wait until we go back to green. They've gotten the number 4 up on that flatbed, and they're pulling him away. So I would expect to go back to green relatively soon, and we'll have to see if the lights might not go off on the safety car this time. In fact, safety car is in. Spinelli leads the field to green. They'll take the green on the racetrack, and then the question is, who's coming to pit road next time around?
Yeah, that's right. They have to take the green flag on the racetrack, and then next time around they can bring their cars onto pit lane if they so choose. It's going to be interesting to see who does and who doesn't. For the guys running out front here, Loris Spinelli He's driving this race. He's got a co-driver in Gianni Torino. The second place car, Patrick Liddy, he will be sharing that Pro-Am car with Damon Oakey. You know, when you come into pit lane next time around, it's going to be really busy down there. So you don't want to get held up. You know, maybe you can come in. You can come into your pit stall quite clearly, perhaps, but maybe when you try to leave, there's another car in the way. So that's something that these teams need to take into account. And I would think most of the single driver entries in this field might want to stay out a little bit longer just to try and make sure there's fewer cars on the pit lane.
Round 2 of the 2022 Lamborghini Super Trofeo North American Championship underway. The caution has been pulled back, green flag is out, and it will be interesting to see with the pit window open who will come to pit lane. But the complexion up front of this race, Jeremy, has changed. Laura Spinelli still up front, then Patrick Liddy, but different classes. And now for Patrick Liddy, the car right behind him, unless Luke Berkeley has come into pit lane, and he did. Man, it's now stacked Pro-Am, Pro-Am, Pro-Am. So you've got to now be a little bit guarded as to whether you're going to let that other class car by, because when you do, your competitor in class may be the next one in line right behind you. So that's how the race complexion has changed. The number 1, our race winner from yesterday, is in, Kyle Marcelli, with that push from behind, the spin on lap 1 down in turn 2. He has recovered that yellow help that's brought him back to the pack, and now we'll see what Danny Formal can do. Interesting.
Yeah, this is,
we saw a lot of tire pressure changes, Jeremy, yesterday. The cars seem to really be underneath the drivers today, and I saw no crew member attending to the rear tires on that number 1.
Yeah, we had a dozen of the cars came into the pit lane, and well, 19 didn't. So that means 11 did, because we got one car out of the race. It's number 4 car, of course, after that incident. So yeah, fairly even split, and I'm sure there'll be more takers this time around, and a few more over the course of the next few laps.
Remember yesterday, Jeremy, we saw we saw a lot of changes to rear tire pressures. Alan Grossberg and the number 2 from Dream Racing, that Lamborghini Las Vegas entry, they were making some changes. But remember how skatey the cars looked in the second stint yesterday? Even at the end of the first stint, Luke Berkeley was off the racetrack multiple times. And I think this early morning race today, when the track is much cooler, I don't think the teams have struggled with those rising tire temperatures and pressures like they did yesterday. The cars look much more balanced, which should make this final run, 21 minutes and change left to go to the checkered flag. I think it should be much more compelling than it was yesterday. Yesterday it was a little wild at times.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? It was very exciting out there for the bunch of the different teams. But these pit stops are critical now. You've got to make a nice clean pit stop. You've got plenty of time to make your stop and or your driver change. If you're not making a driver change, you can have a few deep breaths out there before we get ready to go again in the second part. His number 54 car onto pit lanes, one of the LB Cup contenders. It'd be Jason Keats, who comes into the pits. It'll be Charlie Martin from the UK, who will resume in that number 54 car.
Just have to see how things settle down or don't settle down on the racetrack after all of the pit stops are made and the pit stop cycle is done, and then we'll have a little better idea of where everything should fit in. But right now, Luke Berkeley in the 23 under attack, and I couldn't tell was that Spinelli or not. I mean, he's got a team car out there that looks exactly like his, so a little hard to tell as they come up and over the rise. I think it is the 88 that's right there with him. Indeed it is. So Berkeley out in front, Spinelli trying to get through. Berkeley made his pit stop, Spinelli has not, so this kind of gives you an idea of how much time you lose. Again, you think about these stops, they are timed, and the one driver format has to be in the pit lane for 87 seconds. That's from the time into the pit to out of the pit. The two driver format a little bit shorter, 3 seconds shorter, 84 seconds, and you've got a great description, I should say, or explanation, Jeremy, as to why that 3 seconds is there.
Yeah, exactly right. Because the drivers who've already been on the racetrack, they know how the car is handling, they know how much grip the track has, or in this case hasn't, and so they are able to get themselves back up to speed after coming out of the pit lane very, very quickly. The tyres will certainly lose a fair bit of their temperature that they had generated during their previous stint when they're sitting in the pit lane for around about 30 seconds, but they're still in pretty good shape. And there comes now our race leader, Laura Spinelli, heads to the pit lane. We'll leave Patrick Liddy staying out a little bit longer.
Well, the question is, for me, Jeremy, and I don't have it on the clock, and you may know this, with the pit window being delayed, will it be the entire 10-minute pit window from when it actually opened and the drivers are allowed to pit, or is it somewhat abbreviated now?
No, I think it'll just be abbreviated, the pit window, because the caution period, I think, extended about 3.5 minutes into the pit stop window, so it still there's plenty of time for everybody to come in and make their pit stops before the final 20 minutes of the race. But where are we now? We're 18 minutes remaining, so yes, it has been extended a little bit. Yeah, you're right.
But you would think that you would think that the teams would be going, we need to get in there, because even if it ran several minutes into what would be the normal window, you got to be looking at that going, hey, well, we don't have a lot of time on the other side of that 20-minute mark, only 3 minutes or so, and we've already eaten 2 minutes plus into that. So you want to be thinking, hey, I need to get in there. When you look at the lap times these cars are doing, you can't stay out on the racetrack for too long, because if you get caught out running 1:27 lap times, if you get caught out, that's a problem. That's a big problem.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think there's only 2 cars that haven't stopped, and they're both in right now. Patrick Liddy in the race leading car number 8, and at number 53, that's Aiden Yoder, the 19-year-old from San Gabriel in California, making his debut at this level. He's done some WRL racing, some World Racing League, which is some kind of pro-am racing. He's done a little bit of F4 as well in the open wheel ranks, and another youngster who was running in second position before he makes his way to the pit lane.
Just checking the tires really quickly there on the 8. I don't see the crew spending a lot of time on the 8 making tire pressure adjustments. They just want to check and make sure they're where they need to be, and then they'll get that car back out on the racetrack with Damon Oakey taking over for Patrick Liddy. But Liddy, what a great job he did. We talked yesterday about, I think Ashton Harrison had really the drive of the race and maybe the drive of her career. She did a great job in the closing stint after taking over from Tom Long, winning their category, the Pro-Am category. But Patrick Liddy today really showed what he is made of, and that'll be up to Damon Oakey to see if he can continue with a lap time and a performance like his teammate put in, and see if they can stay on top of that Pro-Am category.
Yeah, so here comes Jenny Torino then, having taken over on the previous lap from Laura Spinelli, and out of the pits behind Torino will be Damon Oakey in that number 8 car. I think he was shown as the race leader on that last lap, but behind them other cars making their pit stop. Laura Spinelli will be, I think, up into second, has now taken the lead again, ahead of Patrick Kujala in car number 50, who is about 4 seconds behind him in car number 50, having taken over from Eduardo Piscopo, who drove the opening stint. Into third position overall, Sebastian Carrazzo, that's the Pro-Am entry in car number 47. He has taken over from his fellow Puerto Rican, Brian Ortiz. That's car number 47, currently running in third place position on the road.
Well, it's interesting, Jeremy. I look at the 88 and where it's being shown on timing and scoring right now, and perhaps he needs to come back around one more time for the driver ID to register correctly, because my timing and scoring shows Laura Spinelli still in the car, 1 stop in the books, and that should not be the case. It should be his co-driver, Gianno Torino, in the car behind the wheel of the 88. So perhaps they haven't gotten the driver ID plugged in, but officials frown on that, even though they know they may see Spinelli standing there. They really frown on that, and they're going to give you a little bit of time to sort it out and get it fixed. But after that, penalties could apply.
They could well do. That's exactly right, and they made that clear earlier in the weekend. So you've got Gianni Torino, his team have got to hope that Jenny knows where that driver plug is, and he can do it. It's not easy. I mean, particularly with the helmet on, you can't see many of the controls in that car, or at least the ones that are down on the transmission tunnel. You see everything directly ahead of you. Anything other than that is pretty tricky. So he'll probably be fishing around. I'm sure the team will tell him on the radio, make that driver plug change so that the timing and scoring system picks you up as the race leader.
Let's make sure. We'll see when he comes across the line the next time. But you talk about the visibility and the size and what you can see in the cockpit of these cars with the roll cage that's in there. Like you said, it's very crammed. And then think about this. You're wearing a 5-point harness that is holding down your Hans device, the head and neck support system, which is attached to your helmet, doesn't really allow you to get your chin down very far, and a full face helmet won't allow that anyway. And so looking down at controls, like you said, that are on the center console can be challenging. You really kind of have to know, almost like a pilot does, where the switches are, even when you can't see them. You need to have that muscle memory and know instinctively where to reach for a switch or a plug so that you can get it done without with the minimum of taking your eyes off the road. Think about this as they head underneath the bridge. 143 miles an hour is what I just saw registering on the speed chart. There was a radar gun there on that bridge, and 143 under the bridge, so they're well at 150 as they head down into turn 2, and you've got people on your rear wing, and you're trying to change a driver ID plug.
Yeah, plenty busy out there. Gianni Torino now, he leads by 2.1 seconds now over Patrick Kujala, and that gap closed by about a second last time around between first and second. They are both running for the pro category. In third position is Damon Oakey, but right behind Damon Oakey are two other Pro-Am cars. There's Pro-Ams third, fourth and fifth, Damon Oakey, Sebastian Carrazzo and John Dubé, who's made a very impressive debut for Precision Performance Motorsports. Those two teammates that have got 47 and 46 battling now over fourth and fifth places, well, third, fourth and fifth places, with Oakey right ahead of them. Oakey sliding wide. Or was that the slower car? I think it was a slower car.
Can't really tell it. It has been interesting though. After the pit stops, I'm looking at a lot more Pirelli rubber being left at the exit of some of these corners, Jeremy. Cars moving around a lot more than what we saw earlier. There's that slide wide.
Yeah.
And that's the 46.
Yeah, they are. There's a lot of slipping and sliding going on out there at the moment.
Well, and you would expect that for a couple of reasons. One, the track is going to be heating up as the day goes on, that sun really bearing down on the racetrack, so the racing surface is building temperature. That in and of itself builds temperature in the tire. That temperature builds pressure, and then the sliding around, as we've talked about earlier, only exacerbates that problem as the number one slides by. Danny Formal showing why they won this race yesterday. That car looked so good yesterday in the hands of both Kyle Marcelli and Danny Formal. Remember that pass he made on lap 1? It was just spectacular. But I mean, same thing today. That car looks hooked up, Jeremy.
It does, doesn't it? That was a brilliant pass. I mean, he's really stormed his way through the field. First of all, Kyle Marcelli did in that first stint after being punted into the spin, and now Danny Formal has taken up. He's just passed that trio, I think now, of Pro-Am cars. He'll be up into third position. If he isn't now, he will be momentarily, and they'll be setting his sights. He's got about almost 6 seconds to make up if he's going to catch the two leaders ahead of him, who's still separated by around about 2 seconds.
Well, we had 2 full course cautions yesterday, and we always say that full course cautions breed full course cautions. That's what we had. We had the caution and then a late race restart with like 2 laps to go, and then the problem with Randy Solari, and I believe the 46 brought out the final full course caution. We've had 1 today, and really what Danny Formal is hoping for, and just as I say it, the 51 goes around in the corkscrew. That will not bring out the caution, but what Danny Formal is hoping for is that perhaps we would have another late race full course caution, and that would allow him to close right back up on the rear wing of Patrick Kujala and Gianni Torino out in front. The 51 around slides off to the outside, no contact with the wall. That's what's important, and that extra bit of concrete there allows him to get back underway. And now another problem late in the going for Randy Solari, much like we saw yesterday.
Yeah, and is he going to keep that car going again? Yeah. Yes, he is. He's got it back underway, and I think that's going to be another car off the road as well.
Well, I was wondering if that was connected because they were running first and second, I believe, in class when that problem happened. So wondering if that was connected. It's Trevor Andrusko in the 38. Now Andrusko seems to be on his own. Solari's at a different area of the racetrack, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think that was a battle for position.
Well, which is good because Randy Solari actually got a time penalty at the end of the race for contact yesterday for the incident that brought out that final force caution. So don't want to be making contact out on the racetrack certainly 2 days in a row. And turn 4 is Randy Solari's going to want to take that out of the racetrack because that's where he struggled a couple of times there yesterday.
And here's a pass for the lead there with Patrick Kujala now getting past Gianni Torino and taking the lead of this race. On lap 24 then, a new race leader is car number 50 from Sweden. It's slipped a little bit wide there in turn 10, did Gianni Torino, and Kujala just had a much better run down the hill and into the final corner. He was on the outside line, but able to make that pass for the lead. And now looming in the mirrors of Gianni Torino, a lot quicker on that last lap, 3 seconds faster on that last lap was Danny Formal in that car number 1 for Wayne Taylor Racing.
I tell you, Torino does not have the handle on the 88 that Spinelli did early on. That moment there in turn 10, it took my breath away, Jeremy. You heard me kind of a little bit. That I cannot even imagine what that looked like from inside the car, because if you can see it from outside the car, such a high-speed corner, such loading there at corner entry in Toronto, a great job to save it and only lose the 1 position.
Yeah, and there's just battles all the way around this field. It's tremendous. In the AM category, Cam Aliabadi leads it in car number 17, but right behind him are David Starr becoming 48, taken over from Nico Riga, who drove the first stint, and also Martin Fuentes in car number 45. So 3 different teams there. Dream Racing Motorsport in car number 17, Precision Performance Motorsports in car number 48, and for TR3 Racing, Martin Fuentes from Mexico. He won the class yesterday in the AM category, and he's right on the tail of the 2 leaders. He actually just got past David Starr on this lap, so he's up into 2nd place now in the class. He's car number 45, and he's got Cam Aliabadi right ahead of him.
And a great battle for the lead in the Pro-Am category. Dubé in the number 46, then Oki, then Tom Long in the race-winning Pro-Am entry yesterday. Here's that car with Ashton Harrison, the Harrison Contracting Wayne Taylor Racing entry. Long really now all over the rear wing of that Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2 of Damon Oki just in front. And Torino again struggling with the 88, and Danny Formal is going to make it look easy. The back end of the 88 just not underneath Gianno Torino.
It's not, is it? And meanwhile, John Dubé has taken the lead in the Pro-Am class in car number 46 for Precision Performance Motorsports. He is carrying the colours this weekend of the Palm Beach dealerships. There's a dealer championship as well as a team championship, aside from the driver championships, of course. And there's a record 19 dealers involved in this championship this season.
Tom Long heads up the front straightaway underneath the bridge across the start-finish line. Luke Berkeley just behind him in the 23. The black and red Lamborghini is not for position. That's a different class. It's for position overall. But the car that Tom Long is doing battle with is the 8, the green and white number 8 in front. Long gets alongside heading into 3, but he's on the wrong side. Can he get it done? Hard to get it done from the outside into 3. Will it be an over-under to 4?
And right with him too is Luke Berkeley there in the Pro class.
Man, what a move by Tom Long, Jeremy. I mean, the over-under from 3 to 4, he got it done, gets past, and Berkeley comes with him.
Yeah, and that's the pro driver against they're both Pro-Am cars, but Tom Long is a pro driver. Damon Oki is not. He's the Am in that number 18 with Patrick Liddy, who did a brilliant first stint. But super battling between those two. But John Dubé in that number 46 car, he's pulled out nearly 10 seconds ahead of both of those two, and running in 4th position overall. That's a fine effort by that pairing, car number 46 with John Dubé and the youngster Bryson Liu, who's a California driver, who's just 19 years of age in that 46. Drove the first stint in number 46 car.
I know talking about championships at this stage of the game is a little bit premature as Berkeley gets past Tom Long. That was not for position in class, but that position that Tom Long got moving up to second place in Pro-Am is critical in the points. With a win yesterday, if they can hold on to a second place finish today, they'll leave round 1 and 2 with the championship lead. So Tom Long, one of the smarter guys in the field, he knows what's at stake and he knows what he needs, and he's already thinking championship down the road. Round 3 and 4 will be at NOLA in New Orleans in May, and then July Watkins Glen, August Road America, August again, the end of August at VIR, Virginia International Raceway for Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America, and then in November, Mayo, Portugal for the World Finals and the championship finales for Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America. So yeah, it's down the road. It's in November is when the big hardware gets handed out, but these drivers already calculating and making sure they're collecting every point that they can. It's another reason why qualifying is important, Jeremy. That pole position means 1 point, and that could be the difference of a tie or a championship at the end of the season.
It certainly could. It certainly could. And once again, this is the number 8 car there of Damon Oakey, who's slipping down the order overall. He's now down to 4th position in the Pro-Am class because Richard Antonucci got past him as well, and Sebastian Carrazzo is trying to do the same in car number 47. So John Dubé, meanwhile, has moved himself ahead of Gianni Torino into 3rd position overall in car number 46. Wow.
So Dubé having a fantastic run in that car just shows you how talented, like we were talking about, how talented these drivers are in all of these different classes. But it's one of those deals, we also talked about this earlier as well, Jeremy. Be careful not to break out with your performance because you don't want to break out of the class you were in. We were just talking about championships. That can be painful.
Yeah. You know, it's a long season, though. There's 6 race weekends, so you've got time to make it up again. But, you know, the more points you can get on the board early on, the better off you are. You will be. Here's a look at the number 53 car there of Aidan Yoder, I think, just ahead of. I'm not sure who that was, to be perfectly honest. But our race leader, Patrick Kujala, now he's not got much of a lead. Only 1.3 seconds behind him on the last lap, looming his mirrors as Kujala is held up trying to pass Charlie Martin, who's a lap car down into the hairpin. All of a sudden now, the car is Danny Formal is right with the race leader. So we've got a battle for the lead, just 1 minute 48 remaining in this race. So it'll be 2 more laps for Danny Formal to get a little bit closer and maybe even go for the win in that car number 1. A tremendous battle out front.
And even as you were saying that, Jeremy, Danny Formal has gotten closer. 2 laps to go from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in round 2 of the 2022 Lamborghini Super Trofeo Championship. And Formal trying to close that gap. Remember yesterday, lap 1, the pass, and that's how it will be referred to. I know we've talked about the pass before in history here at Laguna, but that was the pass in Lamborghini Super Trofeo. Is Formal close enough this time? I don't think so, not up this hill, but he's got 1 more lap to do it, and he's leaving absolutely nothing on the table. Kujala just in front. The battle for the win in the corkscrew, now down the hill, 5, 6 stories down towards the front straightaway.
Yeah, and the good news is there doesn't seem to be any more traffic ahead of them, so this is perhaps going to be a flat-out fight to the finish between these two with nobody else to get into the way. Good clean lap there for our race leader Patrick Kujala. He's born in Spain, carries Finnish nationality, lives these days in Italy, I believe, but races all over the world and has a lot of success in Lamborghinis over the years. A white flag flies, just 1 more lap to go for Patrick Kujala with Danny Formal looming large in his mirrors.
Formal all over the brakes, closes into the Andretti hairpin. He's close enough to smell the exhaust out of the 50 right now. He's that close. It's coming in through the vents. He's right there. He can taste it. He can sense it. Will he be close enough to make the move up the hill again? That's where he did it yesterday to take the lead on lap 1. He's closer than he was last time by. There is traffic up in front, Jeremy, but I think it's too far out to be a factor right now.
Yeah, that's certainly what Patrick Cugelot will be hoping. Yeah, they're coming up now into turn 6. The other car is farther up the hill towards the corkscrew. I don't think they're going to catch that next car. So what can Formal do? They're going up the hill now to where he made that pass yesterday. Here's a battle for the AM category now with Martin Fuentes and Cam Aliabadi going at it.
Formal close, but not close enough. Not unless there's a mistake by Cugelot in front, down through turn 9. Now, and Formal a little bit loose as he comes off of 9. That's going to give Cugelot an advantage down towards 11. He's just got to get through the slowest corner on the racetrack. Formal closes. I think Cugelot a little careful there at the entry. He says, I really need to get the power down to these Pirelli tires off the corner. He does, and they will take the victory in the number 50. Right now, what a great run. Eduardo Piscopo, Patrick Cugelot, O'Gara Motorsport, Change Racing, US Racetronics, and Lamborghini Beverly Hills will celebrate their West Coast triumph. But, man, they were pressed all the way to the checkered flag, and a good run here in the AM category. A good battle onto the front straightaway, the 45. Fuentes just behind the 17. He's lost that position, and it looks like, well, no. Yes, indeed, Aliabadi takes the victory, and that was in the last couple of laps, Jeremy.
Yeah, they changed positions a couple of times in those last 2 laps because Fuentes got past him on the penultimate lap, but now Cam Aliabadi, in his first ever racing weekend, is going to bring that car home for Dream Racing Motorsport in car number 17 in the 12th position overall, ahead of Martin Fuentes, who's been a champion in various series in the past, a lot more experience. That's a brilliant effort by Cam Aliabadi. Well done to him there in that car number 17. He's from San Francisco, California, so this is the home racetrack for him, and that potential that Enrico Battaglia told me that he saw in Cam Aliabadi is clearly right there. Also, Slade Stewart there for Flying Lizard Motorsports takes the LB Cup victory by only half a second over the O'Gara Motorsport Change Racing US Racetronics entry of John Hirschberg in car number 13. So a great run for both of those two as well.
And the happiest person in the paddock about Slade Stewart's victory is going to be his daughter, because she's the one who designed the paint scheme on this car, Jeremy. And for Flying Lizard Motorsports, they stand on the top step. And this is the battle that we were talking about with Fuentes and the 17 of Aliabadi. Look at this. Fuentes up the inside, overruns it, and then cuts back underneath, does Aliabadi. And this is why the timing and scoring screen was going back and forth. Aliabadi takes it back down in turn 2.
That was the pass on the penultimate lap, and then on the final lap, Aliabadi threw it down the inside. Brilliant move there in turn 1. I mean, the door was just about open, just about room for one Lamborghini width on the inside. Aliabadi took it for somebody's first race weekend. You've got to be kidding me. That was fantastic.
Just absolutely great racing throughout all 4 classes. And I had looked at the timing and scoring screen, and Fuentes was in the lead, and I called that. And as I turned back to look at it, I was like, well, hang on a second. I know I saw it differently the last time I looked at it, and it changed again. But that's Lamborghini Super Trofeo. That's why it's so great to watch this series. We talk about one of the best one-make series in the world, and you get to see it right here in North America, and you saw it today. And think about the remaining races: New Orleans, Watkins Glen, Road America, VIR, and man, no one was disappointed at the racing today. Yeah, you can go take a break now, back underneath the wall, but everybody came out to watch. Hard-fought racing, it's what we expect in this series, and you'll see it every weekend. We've got 4 more to go here in the U.S., and then the championships wrap up in Portugal. For Jeremy Shaw and Brian Till, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you the next time for more Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America action.